Welcome to another Intro to Java Programming video. In this video, I'm going to talk about the concept of nesting control statements. That means where you have an if and else block, and inside the braces below the if or below the else, you have more if and else's. Let's take a look at an example. This class is called nesting. I'm going to run it. And you'll see it's going to bring up an oval. And right now it's yellow. But if I click on randomize, it might choose something different, but it might not. In this case, it just kept it yellow. Now I've got a blue oval. Now I've got a pink oval, a yellow oval. And as I click through this, you can see different colored ovals may or may not show up. Oh, I finally got some green and some orange. So let's take a look at the code and see what does this. It's a relatively simple looking application. All right, for starters, I've got some constants up here for display width, display height, and display width is 400, display height gets the value of display width, so they're the exact same. So, as you've seen this before, if I change this to 800, then display height would also be 800 as well. I've got a J button called randomize. I've got a J panel called GUI panel. And I've got a inner class called display panel, and the object of display panel type is called display. I've got some ints. Num min gets 65, max gets 89. I've got a char called ch and a color called c. In my main, I instantiate my nesting object. You've seen this in many projects before. I'm going to set the default close operation, set layout to a new border layout. We've seen this before. I'm going to call on my method setupGUI, which is a method that I've created to set up the GUI. You've also seen me do this before as well. Then I've got a method called PicColor. Then I set pack and set visible to true. These are the things that I always do with the JFrame. So let's take a look at setupGUI really quickly because this is not going to be anything new here. Setup GUI is just going to get my content pane like usual. I'm going to instantiate my display panel, and I'm going to create something called GUI panel, which is going to be a J panel that'll hold all my GUI components. And it's got a flow layout set to it. Got my randomize button, and I pass the string randomize into it, and I've got an action listener that's added to randomize so that it's interactive. We've seen this stuff in previous videos. I add my randomize button to the GUI panel, and then I add the GUI panel to the window and border layout south, and I add my display panel to border layout center. Now the display panel is where all the painting is going to take place. So this is my display panel here. My GUI panel is where my button resides, and that's right here. We've seen this in our border layout demos in previous videos. Okay, so that's my GUI. Now, let's take a look at the PicColor method. That's called immediately when the frame opens because I need a color. Because when I open the JFrame, first thing that happens is, the GUI shows up and then display panel shows up. And when the display panel shows up, it needs a color for the oval that's being drawn. If I don't call on this, then I'm going to have a problem. Let's see what that problem might be. It just shows up black. Now black isn't any one of the colors that I want to choose. Now when I click randomize, it's going to choose one of the colors, but I'd like it to just pick on the color immediately. So let's take a look at the PicColor method. This is where our nesting of control statement takes place. I'm going to maximize this a little bit here so you can see. We've got an if block and an else block. Okay, that's the big things here. So what this is I'm doing an even-odd checker. I'm generating a random number and I'm checking to see if num is either even or if it's odd. This right here is an even check, or it's checking to see if something is evenly divisible by something else. What I'm doing here is I'm checking to see if num is evenly divisible by 2. The remainder operator, as you may recall, is going to return the remainder of a division operation. So if I divide num by 2, it's going to give me the remainder of that operation. So let's say if num is 4, 4 divided by 2 has a remainder of 0. If it's 5, 5 divided by 2 has a remainder of 1. So if it were 5, it would not be equal to 0. That operation would not give you a 0. So this would resolve to false. If it's 4, 4 divided by 2 is remainder 0. So it would be 0 is equivalent to 0. So that'd be true. So basically what this statement does, it checks for even or odd. All right, so if num is even, that's what that statement says, then I've got this block here. Inside of this block, I'm going to check another if, else. I'm checking to see if the character here, the char, is less than f. If it's less than f, then I'm going to set the color to magenta. If it's not less than f, so if it's f or higher in the alphabet, I'm going to check and see if it's less than n. So if it's anywhere between f inclusive and n exclusive, it'll be orange. Anything n or higher in the alphabet will be colored green. So that's in my condition if it's even. Okay, so what I've done here is I've nested this if, else, if chain in here inside my if block. Okay, now else. Now I'm checking to see if the character is greater than t. If it's greater than t, if the number is odd and the character is greater than t, I'm going to set the color to cyan. Else, if it's less than t, or actually t or between t and o exclusive, it's going to set it to blue, because we know if it gets down here, it's got to be either t or lower. Now, if it's t or lower and it's greater than 0, we're going to set it to blue. Else, we're going to set it to yellow. Okay, so in our if section, we're checking to see if it's, lower than f, else lower than n, else everything above that. In our odd section here, greater than t, else greater than o, else everything o or below. Okay, so this is the nesting of control statements. We're going to do this a lot in the project on this unit. Thanks for watching.